Good evening, you guys. Today we're going to talk about Baltimore. Baltimore was probably one of the most memorable places for favorite foods for me. And I know that sounds like, wow, really? Like, yeah, it topped New Orleans by far. I'm just not a fried food eater, and New Orleans has a lot of just fried foods and seafoods, and I'm not real big on seafood either. Or soul food. And maybe it's because I'm born and raised in a family that cooks it. And my grandmother actually is from New Orleans. So the food is not so much of a big deal when I go. Anywho, Baltimore. I went to Baltimore alone. And the food was impressive to me. I was the first place I had white barbecue sauce. That was the first place I had fried hard-boiled eggs. That was the first place I had smashed peas. Yeah, they just had some very unique foods there that just really stand out to me. So, Baltimore for the food, definitely. The pier, the wharf, reminded me of San Francisco, which is where I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. And then just kind of cool how the East Coast, the cities are a lot smaller than the West Coast. And so you can take a train and be in the next damn state within 30, 45 minutes. So an old client of mine who relocated, was originally from Baltimore, moved to California briefly, and then she moved back. So she met up with me, and we hung out a few times, and she actually took me on the train to DC, to the African American Museum. That was amazeballs. The architecture on the outside was beautiful. All of the information inside that museum was mind-boggling. I'm not a big informational seeker. I'm not like a big book reader. So I am a very surface person. I am very visual, not necessarily internal or external. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but visual for me. So I'm going to take pictures, sightsee, things like that catch my eye. But I'm not going to be reading a whole bunch of stuff. That reminds me, that's too much work for me. So if you are a reader and you want to absorb information, then you probably needed a longer time at the African American Museum. Well, for me, I was able to graze through it in a couple of hours. I've been told people need days. The museum is, I think, 3 floors, if I remember correctly. And it takes you through a time warp. So when you first go into the museum, you see slavery, and it takes you into slavery. They intentionally made the room small so that you could feel the compactness of being, I guess, on a slave ship or inside the dungeon of where they would keep the slaves. So the day I went, it was really crowded, and I'm like, why is it so crowded in here? And it just annoyed me, and I found out that it was intentional. And I'm like, oh, hell no, y'all not gonna be pulling and tugging at my motherfucking emotions, because this is too much. They got the actual size of the whip, displayed, and the little rock that they stood on to be auctioned off. And I was like, ooh, this is heavy. This is dark and heavy for me. There was a lot of other races in there, and I'm like, move out my way. And why is y'all here? Now, I know maybe everybody want to know and understand, but ooh, it was a lot. It was a lot. So after I got off that first floor, there was a waterfall, and that was also intentional. And it brought you out of the time warp of slavery into, the early age of when we were able to get jobs and stuff like that. And so that was quite refreshing, and the waterfall was intentional for that purpose. And then it showed you, all of the jobs that they gave us early on, African Americans, in the medical field and the train station and stuff like that. So that was dope. There was a lot of information on each floor. I was just happy to get off that first floor, because that first floor had me real angry. And then the third floor was like modern, civilization, where you got Obama and Oprah, and how the transition went from us wearing dashikis into FUBU and Carl Kanai, and how we kind of melted out of that, where at one point in time we were actually proud to wear our own clothes, and we're not doing that so much now. So the music, the different genres of music and actors, from Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor, so Donkey Ropes and Salt and Pepper, and it was dope. It was really dope. Curtis Blow, so it just went all the way around the board. So the East Coast trip for me was pretty cool, and it was only Baltimore and DC. So even the museum's food was banging. I mean, you had options, and you had the little cafeteria tray and stuff like that, but in every they had different food stations, and every food stations was categorized as a region. So that was cool, because you get to pick and choose what you wanted to eat based on the region of your palate. So that was my kind of cool part about Baltimore, was the food. I think I stayed in a Holiday Inn or something like that, and I kind of did a little sightseeing on foot, and you could tell the blocks changed pretty quickly, just like at any hood. I mean, you could be in a nice neighborhood and you walk 2, 4, 5 steps to the left, then to the right, and you in a whole nother situation. So I felt like I walked into a little situation, and I was like, okay, let me turn back up, because I am by myself. But nothing really scared me or intimidated me, as long as you had your common sense, you can kind of figure stuff out. And I wasn't out late at night either. So yeah, that was my little spin trip take on Baltimore and DC. Like I said, that was one of the, I would say, my most memorable favorite places for top food for me, and I done been a lot of places. And DC would definitely be that African American museum, hands down. That was just a dope experience. It had its dark moments, and then it had its highlight moments, and it was just amazing how a museum could take you through those feelings, those sensations, those emotions. And they say it was intentional, and they're accurate on that. So I'm gonna go now. That was quick. But yeah, that was, like I said, good food. The pier, the wharf reminded me of San Francisco, so very familiar in that area. A lot of people was like, you're going where? By yourself? And I was like, oh my God, every place has bad neighborhoods. Every place is gonna have mediocre, and then they're gonna have the high and mighty, rich and ritzy. I'm not going in nobody hood. I don't need to see that. And you got common sense, you got street sense, you got your survival skills, and you'll be fine. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk about, I think, Maui and Hawaii next. Bye.